meeting, regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education on March 10th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. De Vera?
Here.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here. Okay, can I have everyone stand for the pledge?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, I need a motion for the approval of the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And now we are on to our communications to the board, and we are recognizing our trainee employee of the month.
I know, I forgot. You'd think I know, right? That's okay. This is Angel Lopez, and he's at the Transition Center. This is Michael Malaya, his job coach from the Transition. And Angel Lopez is a positive influence on his peers and a dedicated worker. Angel is willing to do any chore or errand to help out at Oak Hill Worksite. Angel has grown immensely in his skills and abilities, and Angel has developed a positive and healthy attitude towards working at Oak Hill. Do you have anything? Rogelio has come a long way in the Panther Work Program, developing valuable skills and has shaped into a dedicated and capable worker. This semester, he has gained experience at working at Walgreens in Haynesville. From day one, he made a great impression by introducing himself and shaking hands with the manager. Very nice. Throughout his time at Walgreens, Rogelio has shown remarkable growth and ability to work both independently and as part of a team. He is always willing to lend a hand, especially with transporting heavy boxes and unloading shipments. Congratulations, Rogelio. May you continue to learn and grow and explore new opportunities in the workforce.
Okay, and we will move on. Do we have an update on the CEDAW Governing Board recap?
So the CEDAW Governing Board met on Wednesday, March 5th, this past Wednesday, and some of the it was a relatively quick kind of an update sort of meeting. The next steps or things that are happening right now is the nominations for the nomination committees for the new governing board officers, for the executive board. There's some special recognition, and then an update on progress of the SIP plans. And for the most part, all the updates and the progress has been on track, which is really encouraging. One of the parts that I thought really stood out was kind of cool. Last spring, Mundelein District 75 and 120 shared their intent to withdraw from CEDAW. In December, the CEDAW administration received a letter from District 75 and 120 rescinding the notice to withdraw, acknowledging that there's still work to be done. However, CEDAW is moving in the right direction, which is really cool. If you remember last update, finance was fun. And this time it's the FY23 CEDAW audit is near completion. The ISB, once ISBE replies with the ESSER requirements, the audit should be wrapped up. They anticipate a positive resolution regarding ESSER. They anticipate an accurate FY23 fund balance. Also, the FY24 audit completion should be completed at the end of the fiscal year. And some of the financial system changes they anticipate to provide greater assurance and transparency.
And one thing, I do believe with the FY23, there is going to be a management letter. I mean, we're lucky that that's all that's happening there. So I think it'll be, I think, Mr. Jewett, you probably would agree. I think we have the right leadership team there. The numbers are correct. I feel like, you know, when I'm looking at it, it's real. So I'm very positive about where they're headed.
And it also there was a vote on extending some of approve the one-year contract for the interim superintendents, Dr. Judy Hackett and Dr. Tim Thomas, effective July 1, 2025. So with the intent of continuing on with the leadership they have here as they continue to search and hire replacements, both there and also in the business office. And yeah, Dr. Johns and Ms. Aller will be asked to continue next year until, unless a qualified business official is secured. There was some discussion around that and how that can be a really difficult position to fill, but they'll continue in pursuit of that. And so, thus concludeth the update.
Thank you, Mr. Jewett. Any questions with the FOIA report? Okay. Any questions with reviewing contracts less than $1,000 report? We only had one. Okay, moving on from there. We're cranking right along, people. All right, now is our lovely time for opportunities for public comment. Members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments will be accepted up to noon the day of the scheduled regular meeting. Public comments will be contacted to confirm identity. Once confirmed, electronic public comments will be provided to all board members in written form. We don't have any public here because it's sad. And no electronic public comments, so thus moving on. We are on to Dr. Mendoza for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Vice President Larson and board. The Illinois Association of School Board has announced that the Round Lake Area School Board is one of 46 to earn the 2024 School Board Governance Recognition designation. Again, I might add. This recognition is designed to acknowledge those school boards that have engaged in activities and modeled behaviors that lead to excellence in local school governance in support of quality public education. The board has earned this award every cycle since 2016, and you will in fact be recognized Wednesday. So I'm just letting you know you will and hope to see you there. On Thursday, February 27th, District 116, that was post-secondary success team in collaboration with Grays Lake District 127, was asked to present to the Lake County Workforce Development Board on emerging CTE programming across Lake County. Programming highlights currently implemented through Round Lake include Empower Youth, Essential Employability Skills Pilot, Law Enforcement and School Safety Internship Pilot with Lake County Tech Campus, school-based enterprises across Round Lake District 116 that include Round Lake Design, Panther Pour, Arf Treats, Cougar Creations, Wildcat Workshop, and the Panther Plant Emporium. School Links Value as a post-secondary success platform, Navigate Lake County, and Healthcare Career Discovery Days. District 116 continues to be a leader in the post-secondary success space, and we look forward to continued growth and increased stakeholder support across Lake County. I'd like to call out Jess Crone for her leadership in that area. I mean, she's definitely taken us to another level. Very grateful for her leadership. On Wednesday, February 26, all senior students were invited to participate in a School Link simulation, The Game of Life. Students met as a large group to discuss the importance of understanding the impact of large and small decisions on their financial outlook. They then engaged in 2 scenario building experiences in small groups to understand the real-time impact of various financial post-secondary and lifestyle choices. Students then reflected together as a large group on their choices. Students found great value in connecting their plans with financial outcomes, and many are better prepared to make informed decisions for their futures. Students will continue to be supported through strategic learning experiences that leverage School Links tools for their post-secondary success. District 116 has been working with the Big Brother, Big Sisters of Metropolitan Chicago this winter to coordinate a pilot mentoring program between students of Round Lake High School and Indian Hill Elementary School beginning fall of 2025. The goal is to create 20 Big Little Partners between the schools. The program will host activities for the students at Indian Hill Elementary School twice a month, being coordinated by a site lead from Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Recruitment for the student participants will begin this month with the intention of identifying all participants by the end of April. The selection process is driven by the schools, followed by interviews conducted by the Big Brothers and Big Sisters representatives. We look forward to sharing more about this exciting partnership in the coming months. Last and certainly not least, the District Education Foundation has awarded their second round of grants for the year totaling $13,600. They include the following: Jose Lu Catalan, Round Lake High School, $1,500 for the Guitar Club; Aaron Pedersen and Marjorie Baker, From Demonstration to Exploration, $2,000 at John T. McGee Middle School; Andre Rivera, Javier Diaz, and Caitlin Nelson, Round Lake Middle, Rock Band Part 2, $2,000; Laura Rydick, Lacey Henley and Carolyn Corcoran, McGee Empowering Entrepreneurs, School-Based Enterprises, $4,400. Megan Rasmussen, Round Lake High School, the Summary Mystery Book Giveaway, $2,000. Scott Kabelka at Ellis, iReady Personal Pathways, $500. And Julia McCann at Ellis, 3D Pen Expansion for $1,200. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. And we are on to committee reports. Mrs. Klingler, the Community Engagement Committee.
Yes, hello. We got to meet tonight for the Community Engagement Committee meeting. We basically had 2 kind of large ticket items on our docket. The transportation software proposal, which will be coming to you guys actually this evening. That has actually already passed through Finance and through the Community Engagement Committee. We both are in support of that. There's going to be a proposal made tonight, so you guys will get to hear more about it, but it's really, I think, going to be an enhancement. So I won't go into too much detail about that. Parent Square was the other one. So just kind of doing a high-level overview of that. The district had a contract with Remind for 1 year. In that time, the Remind program has had a host of issues, multiple functionality issues brought forth by teachers and school leaders, and it can't be addressed. So Parent Square does address a lot of these concerns that they have. This actually went through the Finance Committee is going to be going through the Finance Committee 317, and then it will come for a full board approval that evening. But essentially they want to use the parent square. It's almost like a class dojo style, but for secondary. So it's got some really nice highlights. Facebook style page where they can add updates. It's, like I said, similar in style to dojo. It does auto translate to the language of preference. You can actually set out time preferences for communication. So if you only want to be communicated with at 6:00 p.m. or only between these hours, you can do that. And that can be overridden for urgent messages, which is really nice. One of the other nice things is families are auto rostered into the parent square, so it's not like they have to be at a parent night or scan a QR code. Yeah, so there's definitely some really nice updates. We did have some questions about developing SOPs, and that's going to be assured to be done, they said. So overall, I'm really delighted with it. I want to shout out Sarah for just doing kind of a lot of work on researching. They are requesting a 3-year contract. She did have full access to it and it was able to send it out to, I think it was 10 people, something like that, so they could practice using it. And so she was pretty excited. She's going to be sending kind of a snapshot of that to us in a weekly update so we can kind of see the functionality and kind of actually see the program. But I believe that there was a lot of effort that went into this, and I think it's going to be really helpful. So it does have to go, like I said, pass through finance committee because we have to pay for it. So paying is always important. And with a 3-year contract, there's some nuanced questions we want to ask about that as well if it doesn't go well. So, but it will be coming back to us, and then she'll give you more to information on that. But overall, that's kind of what we discussed. Then they had the monthly informational snapshots. If you guys get a chance, check that out. And we were discussing the interesting kind of watching TikTok go up and down. So, other than that, that was it. Do you guys have anything that you would like to add? Okay, yeah, and that was it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Klingler. And now we get to approve some minutes.
I need a motion to approve the February 24th, 2025 regular board meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
To approve the February 25th, 2025 Board of Education special meeting minutes.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Mrs. Larson?
Abstain.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
To approve the consent agenda for the following items: the accounts payable report for $1,395,444.34, the March 10th, 2025 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And now we're on to old business. And I believe we are still with, where, is anyone presenting? Sorry, I know, we're moving fast. I'm in charge tonight.
Thank you for that. This is just bringing back from the February 24th board meeting that we had requested through finance to have the wellness coaches and the captain be able to be posted. And so those have been posted. And so we're just formally requesting that the board act upon what was requested at that meeting for those positions.
So as Dr. Schuth mentioned, this did come to finance. Previously, I reported out in that last meeting. These are those wellness coaches for each of the building and then a coach. Again, they help facilitate between HR and each individual building that they represent. there'll be no, calisthenics or anything that they're, the timer or anything.
I can't guarantee that.
Take that back. All right, I need a motion to approve the wellness stipends beginning in 2025, 2026 as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And now we're looking at a rooftop unit.
Hi, so Dr. Lamping had placed a memo in tonight's agenda requesting board approval on the replacement of a rooftop unit at Ellis Elementary School. Lowest bidder was MG Mechanical Contracting at the amount of $328,000.
So if I could just add a few things, I did talk to Dr. Lamping. This RTU, this rooftop handler unit, as you know, we've had some issues at Ellis with heating. This isn't, obviously Ellis is one of our oldest, if not the old, outside the original McGee, but anyway, our oldest building. And this unit needs to be replaced. I know this doesn't cover all, all the RTUs in the district, the rooftop handlers need to be addressed or replaced. This one is in dire need of actual replacement. This is, I think, well, I did ask Dr. Lamping because this is the first, second in this building. It is the first full, complete unit being replaced at Ellis, but there are still many more to go within the district.
Yeah, just real quick, one of the things that I suggested is, if you remember, we brought forward a 3-year plan of construction projects. We needed to add this to year one. It's a big project. It's over $300,000. So what I suggested respectfully, and T did it, is we added revenue to pay for that in terms of using the reserves. Remember, we were going to use reserves for the 4.5. We think that should be added to that pile of projects. It's a big project. So that will all be brought back with updated budget assumptions next week, because we have another meeting, and Dr. Steffen will share some positive, very, very positive information about budget in a minute, so.
Yeah. So we know Dr. Lampy's not here, so we're all just trying to fill in the gaps. But with that, I need a motion to approve the bid award to MG Mechanical Contracting, Inc. in the amount of $328,000 for the replacement of a rooftop unit at Raymond Ellis Elementary School.
So moved.
Seconded. Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by myself, Mrs. Larson. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And we're on to new business.
Yep, I'm here this evening to share that we are going to do some more curriculum adoptions coming up for the coming school year. Tonight, this is just new business for discussion to see if there are any questions from the board. We'll bring it back next week for approval. What we're looking to put in place next school year is to take our current iReady math curriculum that is K-5 into the middle schools. So we would add a new program. We've been using Carnegie Learning, I think, since 2013 or 14. So we would like to switch to an iReady program, which will be a great just transition for kids, sticking with the same curriculum vendor and also with our assessment vendor for middle school math. And then we're also looking to add a new resource at the high school level. iReady does not go beyond 8th grade, that which led us down a path of looking at a a variety of other high school math vendors. If you recall, we are going to move back to a traditional math pathway of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. It gave us a lot more options with resources, so we are going to move with Savas Learning. For social studies, we'll also have a nice continuation because we're going to use Teachers Curriculum Institute, which we currently use at elementary. So again, that'll be a nice smooth transition from elementary into middle school for our social studies. And then because we're rolling up dual language at the middle school, we have to have Spanish language arts curriculum. So for our sixth graders that roll up next year, both middle schools, we would like to adopt Vista Higher Learning. Now the fun, exciting budgeting is you can see a table there that breaks down over the next 5 years the costs. 3 of these vendors we are paying up front. We got a significant discount for the high school math, the social studies, and the language arts if we were willing to go into a 4-year deal. And we felt that we could navigate that through grant funds or district dollars. And then the K-8 math would have been over $1 million. So that was not something we thought was fiscally responsible. So we are going to pay that one on an annual. And the really good news about that was that iReady didn't have a huge discount. So it wasn't a huge loss for us to pay that annually. So now the really exciting news is that our Ill Empower grant money actually runs through August. So we can pay for curriculum in July. So the iReady math, the SY26 $201,785 will be paid for through the Ill Empower grant. The social studies TCI, full 5 years, can be paid through Ill Empower, and the Spanish language arts, full 5 years, can be paid through Ill Empower. So the only one that will need to be covered in district dollars is the high school, because the high school is not an identified school. So we do not have Ill Empower money. So not that we want to be identified in any way whatsoever, but when we are, we're going to use that money and we're going to use it well. So we're really excited that that's a pretty huge, significant amount of this money that will be able to be covered through grants. So that I do need to say that Ms. Kurtz is the one, Casey Kurtz manages this grant, and did a ton of work with the T&L team to look at what are all the things that we can do through the grant and what's the smartest way to go about it. And she is still writing the amendment, so I don't have it approved yet.
But it's about $700,000.
Yeah, but we are aware that it is an allowable expense in the grant, so we anticipate it to be approved. So pretty excited about that. But are there any questions or any more details I could help with?
Everyone knew, right? So this came to finance, and we had this conversation of what could possibly be paid for through grants. So it's good to hear that information this evening. So I know we're waiting for that approval. When do we anticipate that to happen?
So Casey plans to submit the grant work through it on Wednesday, would submit it, and then it's always up for grabs on how quick the state will turn around an approval. It literally could be within 24 hours or it could take them 3 weeks. So as soon as we know that, that could be something I could notify through a weekly if you'd like, or any other means.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Just, about timelines, so just have that. Because you know me, I file it away and then I'm following up.
I have a quick question, and I don't mean to be nervous. Like, on a hypothetical situation, were that not to be covered by the grant, and how would that change?
Yes. So when I did this, because I knew that there was a good chance that some of this could be paid for the grant, but like I said, I knew there was no way we could come up with over $1 million for one content area, knowing that we're likely going to be doing some kind of adoptions every year as we work through cycles. So we looked at what were the ones we knew that and in talking to Don, it was like, well, how much can we plan for in district dollars, which is why you saw the $800,000 initial budget assumption for curriculum adoptions, because that's what we had worked through with T and with Don on like how much. So I took the $800,000 and then said, where can we get the best deal? And really just kind of had to play with the numbers on getting the best deal, knowing what we could handle within district. And I mean, there could be a year where we would have to do more of like a 2-year deal or a 3-year instead of being able to go all the way to 5. So it was just being really thoughtful about the process of how much money could we put up front.
Yeah, it definitely was discussed in finance, because at the time when this was brought forward, we weren't even sure if we could consider grant dollars. And of course, no matter what we have in the district, we need to know that we can support it and fund it with or without those grant dollars, especially curriculum implementation. So those conversations were had, and that's why I had them revise that table, if you recall last week, because the first memo, I really wanted the board to see the breakout of the cost that the district would incur, whether it's grant money or coming out of the district. It's all the district money, but you know which bucket it would come out of. So if, let's hope not, because I don't want to put that in the universe, so I'm not even going to say it again. The district would be fine either way.
Yeah, so is it typical that, my experience with grants are almost like sales, right? You have to do a lot of them to be able to get some, but it sounds like you were pretty confident in being able to get this one.
Well, this is the Ill Empower money because we were identified based on our scores through the state report card process. We know exactly how much money we're going to get annually. However, what we cannot predict is the carryover money. So I knew what our initial allocation was that we got like back in, I think October-ish was when those dollars come out, and that would not have covered all of this. Well, then we got an email about 2 weeks ago that the state was giving us additional carryover money, which is when other districts aren't using the funds, it goes in the pot and they spread it out. So there's always the chance that we get carryover. I just can't budget for that, so the email comes and it's in the system. So again, we knew we could cover some of it. It was just a matter of how much, and that carryover came in just at the right time.
And the challenge is they're giving us the carryover in March. And I mean, it's almost like at first we're like, well, it's not, what good is that going to do? Because if we get it in this fiscal year, or if we want something for next fiscal year, we can't use it because it runs through August. It helps us. The only grant we can predict reasonably is Title I. But that's, I think we've gotten title money for 25 years straight or something. So this one is too new to count on every year, but it's really good to use it for one-time expenditures, and that's what this is. So I think it's a great use of money.
Awesome, thank you. All right, moving on to the Traversa transportation software purchase.
Good evening. As you heard earlier, the transportation software proposal has already gone through the Finance Committee, and tonight it was brought forward to the Community Engagement Committee meeting as well. We are looking to do an upgrade from the current VersaTrans software to an all-in-one solution that called Traversa. That will give us a parent app, new routing software, GPS on our buses. I believe that with these tools, it'll make the transportation department a lot more efficient. And we are looking for approval from the board tonight. If you have any questions,
So it, as mentioned, this went to finance and community engagement. Just as a reminder, when it came to finance, we asked for a few things. We put these devices in our buses. Our buses are leased, we don't own them, so we turn them over when we get a new lease. What will that cost and look like then to move these devices into the next fleet? So, transportation reached out to a company that we use that's like I'm just rounding up, $8,400 for 53 devices. Of course, now our fleet could increase, and then this lease will be up in 4-ish years. So that cost could go up, and of course we could have more. Possibly our fleet could be larger. But it's to think of those costs that we have to incur in implementing a program like this. So that has been vetted. The only other thing I asked is, if a device breaks and it possibly outside this warranty, what is the cost that we would incur as a district? So that is still being vetted, and we'll get that hopefully by the end of the week in a weekly. And then just, you know, the communication with parents, and this was brought up also at community engagement. Not every parent may utilize the device, because maybe, you know, I drop off my student, but maybe grandma picks them up at the bus. They may not be as tech savvy, know that they get the app, but if something happens, we need to have communication to family members who are not going to utilize that app. So those are the things we talked about. But both, and you know, Mr. DeVera, of course, for finance, we were all in agreement in supporting this. There are just a few little things that have to happen still with the implementation.
Just one point on the communication to other family members. The way that we will have integration flow is to any parents or guardians that are listed for that student. But we will definitely check to see if there's an alternative to the app notification, whereas they could maybe receive just a text or even an email. So
Right,
we'll follow
yeah,
up.
because I mean, even some parents may not utilize it as well. We just need to make sure we have communication to, like you said, the guardian, parents, whoever. We just need to make sure that happens. And then again, what costs the district might incur if we have to replace a device. Because all that needs to be start budgeting for with transportation.
Do all students get transported only on district buses? In other words, are there going to be a time that we would subcontract or we would use a transportation system outside of our system?
For pre-K through 12, we do our own in-house transportation. We currently use an outside vendor for our special needs transportation for out-of-district schools.
Would we need to integrate the system in that transportation? And I don't mean the physical device. I mean, is there some way, are there some sort of bridges or ways to go ahead and provide a similar service? It may not be exactly the same, but similar service for those students.
So right now, the expectation from the vendor is that any delay or changes in routes, the parents are contacted directly from the vendor for those changes.
Does that also apply to like homeless students that are being transported? Okay.
Correct, yes. The same vendor that transports the special needs students, they handle right now about 95% of the McKinney-Vento students currently. We have about 3 other vendors that also handle those, but those are brought on by the opposing school district that pays the other half for the transportation. That's just one of their vendors that they use.
Good question.
An important one to make sure we communicate when we're sharing this new option with our families. Something that we didn't discuss, so thank you for asking that.
That was a great question, thank you.
All right. All right, with that, I need a motion for the approval of the agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc. for $181,429 for the purchase of Traverse Transportation Software, installation, and professional development.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here this evening. Ms. Cacciatore is not here today, so I'm just bringing to the board the request to approve the contract for the Allied Sports Soccer Agreement with the Sports Complex. One thing that I think is important to call out, you can see in the considerations section, the cost for this upcoming year would be $2,468.75, which is a slight increase from last year, but that is because an additional competition was added. So just wanted to bring this to the board so we could get our kids playing their allied soccer.
So this did come to finance, and that was a question because we noticed a slight cost increase, and we asked what that was, and that was because of the additional comp day. but it has been reviewed by finance. With that, I need a motion for the approval of the 2025 Sports Complex Agreement for Allied Soccer in the amount of $2,468.75.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. De Vera. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries. And we move on to internet services.
Good evening. Our current Comcast Internet Services Agreement for Old National Bank expires on June 30th of this year. Hermes Mondragon, seated to the left of me, worked with our E-rate consultant Jane Kay to secure the current agreement before you this evening for next school year within the E-rate program guidelines. E-rate covers 90% of the total costs, while the district will pick up the 10% remaining. There is a slight decrease in overall cost, even though the bandwidth stays the same. Total represented savings, $168 or $16.80 back to the district. The request was shared at the February 20th Finance Committee meeting, and I'm just opening up for any questions.
So again, this was reviewed at finance, so everything is good, and let's hope and continue our E-rate program continues. So with that, I need a motion for approval of the Comcast agreement for internet services through the E-rate program for $937.20.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yeah.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
And we're on to student fees.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you tonight regarding our FY26 student fee recommended schedule. This was presented to the Finance Committee, and at the time, we had actually presented it with absolutely no changes to the fees. However, having met with administration and realizing that our new student IDs are going to cost more than they were previously to actually produce, we have changed the fee schedule from what was originally presented to the Finance Committee to what you're seeing today, which is to keep all fees the same going into FY26 with the exception of the student ID fees, which would increase slightly. And we are asking for approval of the FY26 student fee schedule.
When they brought forward that a cost increase from $1 to $3 for the student IDs, it's because of the bus. It triggered the contract we have currently for the printer and paper, specifically that we use now for student IDs. I don't know if the board recalls, we went into a special contract for the temporary IDs that we use now that cost $1. So I reached out asking what happens with the current contract? How does this change with this new ID? So I know Mrs. Bennett, I think we're still in talks, really, if you wanted to expand on that.
So we've been having a lot of meetings about IDs, and as of today, we know that I'm going to say it, Traversa recommends that we use CI Solutions for the student ID. We're also exploring the staff ID component to that. So we have another meeting scheduled for next week just to make sure everybody understands the full implication of any changes that we make. And but either way, we do have a contract with CI Solutions for the use of their printers, the platform, the cameras, all of that. So we understand that that's in play as well.
So I just, while the fees are brought before us for approval, there's still some things that really need to happen and brought back to the board in regards to the student IDs. So even if the board moves forward with approval, still information needs to come back to the board.
And either way, we expect the fee to raise to $3 because of the chip that's required in the new ID for the students. but we will report back on where we land.
And then that was the other thing, the $3 is because of the chip. For that scanning capability as the students go on the bus.
So do you recall last year, did we change the school fees at all?
Last year, we didn't raise these at all either.
So I'm wondering if we should also point out, because eventually, you know, we're gonna need to do that. So it's
Agreed.
just to be able to prepare parent, I mean, nobody likes that, but maybe in the communication, we're not changing it this year. We didn't change it, you know what I mean? Just to reinforce, this is what we've done so far.
Last year, if you might recall, administration brought forward not changing fees, but passing on, I don't know what's wrong with my microphone, the passing on the cost of credit card fees, and the board said no. It's just the cost of doing business. So there was no cost increase proposal brought last year, and there isn't one this year. Now, you know, I always, at least finance, as we kind of, you know, these things come up in our regular cycle, we start thinking, okay, are we thinking about raising fees? Where do we land? And as the climate has changed currently in the country, we really have to be mindful of that, but also mindful of the times that our community lives in. But it's not to say that we're never going to raise the fees. There's going to be a time, for sure.
Yeah, that's my point, that there will be. Could we just add a tip function?
What was
Too soon, too soon.
We definitely are mindful of that. This is more because of a implementation of a new platform for buses right now for the student IDs. All right, with that, I need a motion for approval for the 2025-2026 student fee schedule as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Larson, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Let's talk appointing a treasurer.
Well, again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Board Policy 2:1110, as well as Illinois School Code, requires that the board appoint a treasurer each year. And given the change in administration, my position specifically, we are now coming back to the board just to transfer that designation to myself for the remainder of the year, realizing that at the March 17th Finance Committee meeting, we will also be discussing the FY26 treasurer appointment. So while we're adopting this tonight, be aware you will be seeing another one very similar in the coming board meeting.
So obviously it was discussed at finance, and obviously it's mentioned change in leadership. So with that, I need a motion to approve T. Amsoli, Chief Financial Officer / CSBO, as the district treasurer for the remainder of the school year 2024-2025 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Rock, scissors, paper. So motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Now, let's get ourselves a district security bond.
Along with the treasurer's appointment, there is a required bond that is to be issued. This is going to come at zero cost to the district because the current bond will be transferred over, but we are seeking approval to have the district's surety bond placed in my name as well.
And again, this was at the last finance committee meeting. And with that, I need a motion to adopt the surety bond resolution as presented for T. M. Soli, Chief Financial Officer, for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year, and execute the necessary surety bond documents.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVere. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Motion carries.
And finally, we have the FY26 Budget Officer, again appointing myself as the Budget Officer. This is coming to you as a requirement of Illinois School Code. And this would set me as the budget preparer for the FY26 budget. But again, you will be seeing FY27 come to you in the coming month because as you realize, we're at the end of the FY26 budget process and we will quickly be into FY27. So we're asking for approval of myself as the designated budget officer preparer for FY26.
And again, this was at the last finance committee meeting. And with that, I need a motion to approve T. M. Soul, Chief Financial Officer, as FY 2026 Budget Officer for Round Lake Area Schools Community Unit District 116.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVere, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, let's move on to some positive occurrences.
I don't know if this was last week. My weeks are running together. Was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, it was the all district band, and I'm always obsessed with that because I just think the kids are amazing. But I just have to always highlight the kids are so well behaved. And this year, more than I think any other, they really chose difficult music to do. Like they really were challenging themselves and really did quite well. So I just had to highlight that because I was proud of my kids. And I claimed all 6,700.
I was just gonna say, I know Mr. Francisco's not here, so I mean, it was a great wrestling season for our high school and our middle school students, so congratulations to them, and I hope we will see them here so we can recognize their successes this year.
And I know there's lots of other wonderful positive things happening, but I don't know that any of us have functioning brains right now to
Well, and
list all the
baseball
fabulous
and
things
softball season
that are happening.
has started, and I know baseball is selling spirit wear. Also, the fine arts has a trivia night coming up, and I'm somewhere, I don't know where, not here, so I wouldn't be able to attend. And then football has one coming up for trivia night. So if you want to check that one's April 19th. So if you check your calendars and support our students and teams.
Also, I know Julie attended the Ghostwriters. The Ghostwriters. I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting. Yeah, and said it was amazing. I did not get to see it. I'm speaking on behalf of her, but she said it was outstanding. It was really, really well done, and she said it was like collegiate level.
It was amazing. All right. Any future agenda items?
So I've got one. So I was thinking about how we, curriculum-wise, align our curriculum all the way from pre-K all the way through, right? And having a student that has actually gone through Special Olympics, so it's gone through the special education system. From a sports standpoint, I think there is, if I'm getting it right, there's like Special Olympics and then Allied and then Special Olympics. There doesn't seem to be almost like this, that I think we do a great job of Allied, and then as soon as Allied's over, there's like this searching for what's next. So I'm wondering if we could align our Special Olympics athletics in the same way that we've done everything else. So I'm just like, why don't we just do that?
We'll collect info and bring it back for sure. It's a great suggestion.
awesome idea. Thank you. All right. So it looks like, sorry, we're not done at 7:45. We're 7:52. I need a motion to go into closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purposes of discussing the following: employment matters 5 ILCS 120/2C1 and closed meeting minutes 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Tavera?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Ms. Klingler?
Yes.
So moved. Thank you all for joining us this evening.